Hey guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter's Reality TV Recaps and Opinions, better known as, and that's my opinion, with Peter Mon. Alright, let's get into, let me get a little lip gloss on, let's get into this week's episode of Vanderpump Rules, which I finally got caught up on, and I have lots of notes. I have lots of notes in my notes app. Actually, I have a video that I've been meaning to make, but I keep on having to do updates, 1,000 Pound Sisters and Vanderpump Rules and stuff like that. But I have a video that is called Vanderpump Rules from the beginning, because I watched all 10 seasons and binge watched them. So that will be a video that is coming sometime soon. Where I go back and I tell you guys the highlights of what I thought about the first 10 seasons of Vanderpump Rules going into the 11th season and things like that. The former castmates, members, the people that were on the show, all that kind of stuff. What I thought about certain highlights, what I think about the hypocrisy of certain things that some people did and other things that other people did. I'm going to talk about all of that, and that will be a video that's coming out probably in the next couple days. So let's talk about Vanderpump Rules this week. First of all, I have to just tell you that part of what I'm going to talk about in that video, where I cover like the last 10 seasons of Vanderpump Rules, is that for me, in all honesty, Vanderpump Rules kind of died after season 8, okay? When, and rightfully so, that they left that they were asked to leave the show, or were kicked off the show with Stassi and Kristen and all that kind of stuff. But when Jax and Brittany got married, and Stassi left the show, and Beau left with her, and then Kristen left the show. As crazy as Kristen is, and as much as I did not like her on the show as a character in Vanderpump Rules, she made for fantastic television. And yes, I absolutely will be watching The Valley. What's interesting to me is that both Jax Taylor and Kristen Doute were fired from Vanderpump Rules. It's interesting to me that Bravo has hired them for another show, which I know that Stassi Schroeder was asked to be on too and declined, right? Which I would have lived. I would have lived for a show with Jax Taylor, Kristen Doute, and Stassi Schroeder. But if they were fired from the show, is it like, has enough time gone by? Is it like they're forgiven? It's like, I feel like that's kind of how Bravo works. Like, you do something really bad and you get a slap on the wrist, you know? And then it's like 3 years go by and then you're okay, you're forgiven, and you can have your own show back. Is that kind of how it works? I'm confused. But I will tell you that one of the main things I'm going to talk about on my video covering all 10 seasons is that really after the 8th season, when Stassi and Kristen and Jax all left, and Jax left with Brittany, and Stassi left with Beau, and Kristen left with whoever she was dating at the time. I think it was, well, I can't even remember his name, the guy with the beard. Anyway, that didn't work, and she always was making excuses for Clark. Was that his name? I don't even remember now. But when they left the show was kind of over. I mean, it really was. In fact, I think they probably should have just quit the show at that point. Instead of having all, they added a bunch of castmates. Well, that season, actually, they had cast members on there that then they were asked to leave too, because they were implicated in all of the racist allegations as well. If you guys don't know about the racist allegations, I can do a whole video about that, but you can Google search it as well. It has to do with Faith, that used to work at SUR. But anyway, they had all these new cast members on there that then left after one season. Some of them weren't involved in that, and that, you know, just like left after one season. So we get invested in these characters that are there for a season, and who cares? But anyway, so season 9 was rather boring. Season 10, if it hadn't been for Schwarz and Katie breaking up, and seeing how the friend groups work together and how that all was going to evolve, season 10 would have been boring too, if we knew it wasn't leading up to something. And, you know, with it ending with Sandoval, and now there's all these allegations that are coming out that Raquel has said that she believed the night at the Mondrian when she met Sandoval that he knew that she was coming that night, that production had warned him ahead of time that he was coming, which is interesting because I was watching something where they were showing it on the show where they showed Tom Sandoval, and he was talking about, maybe it was on the reunion, and he was saying that he had said to production that he and Ariana need to be more honest about their relationship. And they showed a clip where they were like filming and he was behind the scenes talking to production. It's been said that Tom Sandoval is pretty close to production through the years. So does it make sense that Tom Sandoval would have heard from production that she was coming to the Mondrian and that he set this whole thing into motion to have this storyline that he knew that he and Ariana weren't going to last anyway because he was already done with that relationship. So what would be the big story? Would be to have this relationship with Raquel that was James's ex, that was the new one that everybody was like befriending in the group, that would blow up the whole show, that would make it into this. Do I think the relationship was real? Yes. Do I think it was convenient to keep the show going? Yes. I don't think there would be a season 11 right now of Vanderpump Rules if it hadn't been for Tom Sandoval having an affair with Raquel and Ariana. I don't think Vanderpump Rules would exist right now. And in fact, in looking back at the seasons, one of the things that I said, well, I'm going to say in this video that I'm going to do, is that really what they should have done after season 8 is they should have started a new show called Vanderpump Rules, something like We All Grew Up. Because there's all of these, they allude constantly to the show Friends, and I believe that Vanderpump Rules came out at a time when a lot of the people that had grown up watching Friends were looking for something new. And so Vanderpump Rules was like the realistic version, the reality TV version of Friends. Well, at some point, they're going to grow up. By the end of season 8, they had almost all grown up. We're getting married. We're settling down. We're getting ready to buy houses and things like that. And so if they had done a separate show that would have been like with Schwarz and Katie, Sandoval and Ariana, with Jax and Brittany, Stassi and Bo, Kristen and whoever she was dating at that time, and they had just called it Vanderpump Rules Were All Grown Up, and that was a separate show, and then Vanderpump Rules stayed, and they got a whole new cast of people like Real Housewives of New York did, or they did something like that, I think it would have done better than it's doing now. Like, Vanderpump Rules is going to die. I don't even know that it's going to survive this season. I'm bored already watching it. And, you know, so anyway, but let's get into what happened this season. So this was the first episode. Episode 2 was the first episode that Sandoval was on it. And I have to say that it's not as weird. I thought it would be really weird seeing Sandoval in Vanderpump Rules, but it doesn't feel as weird as I thought it would, you know? I will say this before I get into this, and I know this is not a real popular opinion, but you have to remember, I watched all 10 seasons literally back to back. I mean, every night I was watching 7, 8 episodes of it, right? My husband had watched it from the inception, you know, each week. And so I would ask him questions like, oh, do you like so-and-so? Like, I've always liked Sheena from the very beginning. I relate a lot to Sheena and things like that. There were people that I liked that, like, I liked Schwartz for a few seasons and I didn't. I liked Katie for a few seasons and she kind of bored me. Ariana was somebody to me that I felt was hard to relate to as a cast member on the show. I really I didn't dislike her and I didn't like her. I just really didn't have any strong feelings about Ariana at all, except for the fact that she would defend Tom Sandoval at any expense, even when he was wrong. I mean, the love and the devotion that she had for Tom Sandoval was above and beyond, right? But, like, I really never had any strong feeling. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, if you asked me to list my top 10 favorite Vanderpump Rules characters or cast members of life, I mean, she would be at the bottom of the list. I like Ariana today, and I feel for what she's gone through. But it's not just because of what she's gone through that I like her. I like that she's, like, an empowered person today. But there wasn't, like, a lot of relatability about Ariana and through this whole thing. And in all honesty, she didn't really have much of a storyline other than being Tom Sandoval's partner, you know, which I think is why this season happens. I'm not really sure, depending on what happens with Sandoval and this friend group, I'm not sure the Vanderpump Rules can survive another season after this. I really don't. So it wasn't as weird seeing him on there. They're living together, and so it goes in this beginning part where Ariana's leaving the house. They have this assistant. I don't know what her name is, Anne or Susan, or I think her name's Anne. And they have to, like, relay messages to her, and then she texts the other person, all this kind of stuff. I do not know what this assistant is getting paid, but I can tell you right now it is not enough, okay? It is not enough. Because at one point, she says something she asks Ariana about, like, what she'll do if he's having this party, because she's trying to communicate it between the two of them. And Ariana kind of says to her, like, very kind of like in a snide manner, to the assistant, she says, I'll keep on existing in my house like I always do. And the assistant looks at her and she says, okay, great. Like, I mean, what do you say in a situation like that? And I don't know if that's Tom's assistant or Ariana's assistant or the person that's in between them. I don't know, but that woman does not get paid enough, okay? I feel bad for that woman. And so then it goes into this whole thing about, you know, the selling of the house, and Tom doesn't want to sell the house. Ariana wants to sell the house and split the expenses, but Tom wants to buy her out. And she feels like it's kind of like this power move. Like, she feels like after everything she's gone through, he shouldn't have it easy, where she just packs her boxes up and leave it. And in all honesty, I can't tell you how many friends of mine I had after the show aired that were like, I'm the same way, okay? I'd be the same way as Ariana in that situation. No, like, he's not going to have it easy where he just gets to stay in the house. I don't know why either one of them would want to stay in the house, if you want to know the truth. So anyway, they're talking about that. Then it goes on to Lala and Ariana having this lunch, and Lala saying that it's logical that Tom would want to have a party there and whatever, and Ariana's like, yeah, because she says that to the assistant that she'll call the police. I can tell you if the police showed up, if Tom had a party, which he does have a party, if she called the police, they'd say, you both live here in the house, you're both residences, it's not loud, nobody needs to leave. So that to me was interesting that she went there. But then Lala says to her, she said, you know, like, why don't you just move out? Like, don't you want to just move out? And it was interesting because a lot of people online were saying that if Lala were in Ariana's position, that she would have been behaving a completely different way. But I think people forget Lala moved out of Randall's house, like, immediately. Like, she was out right away, right? And so I do understand that. I don't know why Ariana got a new boyfriend 10 days after they broke up, which a lot of people are talking about. I think good for her. I'm glad that she got somebody that's, you know, loving her. She even says at one point in the show, she says, Katie asks her something about, I think it's Katie, something about having kids or something. Maybe it's Lala, I don't know. And she says, I see things in a different way now that I'm with somebody else, which is interesting. And that honestly is like a very personal dig at Tom. Like, I never wanted him with Tom, but now that I'm with somebody else, I'm in a different relationship, in a different state of mind, that now I can see him with somebody else, but I can never see them with Sandoval. So that was interesting to me that she said that. But I do understand Lala, like, saying to her, don't you want to get out of this house? I would want to get out of that house. I would want to move and be gone from that house. I could not live with that person that had betrayed me on that level, that deeply. I just couldn't. Not to prove a point, not for whatever. I mean, for my own well-being, I would have to be out of that house. I feel for Ariana, you know? Apparently, it's come out that Tom offered her something like $3.1 million for the house, but then he says on the show, when he and Schwarz are having a conversation, that his bank account was overdrawn. And I'm like, how are you offering to buy Ariana out if your bank account is overdrawn? And he's affected everybody. Schwarz and Sandy's is suffering. Tom Schwarz is upset about him, but we now know that Schwarz and Sandoval are like friends again, because they were on this podcast, which I haven't listened to, but everybody's asked me to listen to. If you want me to listen to that podcast and do it, people said they come across both of them as arrogant and taking no responsibility. So, to be honest with you, I don't know that I really want to listen to an hour of that, but I will. So then it goes on, and it's like, Pump is closing, everybody comes. I was kind of surprised how short that piece of Vanderpump Rules was. And, you know, here's the deal. Like, I love Lisa Vanderpump, and I have to tell you, before I watched Vanderpump Rules, Lisa Vanderpump was not my favorite Real Housewife. I really didn't like her on Beverly Hills. Watching Vanderpump Rules, I fell in love with her. You see a completely different side of her on Vanderpump Rules than you do on the Real Housewives. But in all honesty, and I love the pieces with Lisa when she's like giving them advice and all that kind of, she's very maternal to them. But in all honesty, nobody watches Vanderpump Rules for Lisa. They don't. Like, that's the truth, okay? I mean, if Lisa were not in an entire episode, nobody would notice. And that's just the truth, right? But I love Lisa. And so I was kind of surprised, you know, like, that they didn't pay more homage to Pump and showing, like, all the Pride Day things they did there and whatever. And they didn't do, like, I mean, they did, like, this little montage, but it wasn't much. And I was kind of surprised about that. Then they go in, they're going to have this emo night with the girls, Ariana, Katie, and Sheena. And Sheena is recording Good as Gold as an emo scream song, because I'm good as gold. I do have that song downloaded, and I play it for my dog Boo Radley all the time, and we live for it. We love Sheena Shea in this house. And I just want to say this, by the way, and I said this in my drama video. Can we talk about Brock for a second? Okay, I don't don't know. That man is so fine. He is hubba hubba since he got his haircut. And, you know, I don't mind long hair. I like long hair on guys sometimes, okay? Very Aquaman look and all that kind of stuff. But when Brock got his haircut and that space between his teeth, Sheena Shea may have hooked the hottest guy that has ever been on a Bravo show, period, end of story, okay? That man is so good looking. The part where he's like having this conversation with Sheena about leaving their baby with the babysitter and all this kind of stuff, which I don't know why I noticed this, but I just thought this was funny. So the nanny or the friend of Sheena's or whatever, I don't know what she does, but she had a gorgeous Louis Vuitton purse. Do you remember back in the day on Vanderpump Rules when you first watched it and they were like real servers and they weren't making any money and they didn't carry anything that was brand name? And then it was like season 7 going to season 8 and Brittany started carrying Louis Vuitton and Gucci and they all started carrying Kristen and they all started carrying like all these name brand purses and Sandoval borrowed a Mercedes. Do you remember all that? It's like it all changed back then. I kind of miss those days of Vanderpump Rules, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, Southern Hospitality right now, that's where they're at. But Southern Hospitality at some point will shift over and they'll start be making too much money, you know. They already got O'Sheen, okay? O'Sheen was on Vanderpump Rules first. I don't know if they have like some casting card of like all the people that go on these reality shows. But O'Sheen was actually Brock's friend on 2 episodes of Vanderpump Rules. And now O'Sheen as a bartender never mentions being on Vanderpump Rules, never mentions being friends with Sheena Shea or Brock or being at the wedding of Sheena Shea. None of that. All of a sudden, it's just a bartender from Mexico and Tulum that happened to show up in Charleston to be on this show. I ain't buying it, okay? I ain't buying it at all. So anyway, so Sheena's doing a song. They're going to do this emo night. And then Tom and Tom have this conversation. And Sandoval is pissed that Schwarz went on Jax's podcast and said that he was living his rock star dream. And I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, Sandoval, you're pissed because your best friend, who, by the way, kept your secret for 7 months, okay? Which that alone puts Schwarz in the doghouse. Schwarz shouldn't have kept that secret, okay, from anybody. But he did. He kept your secret for 7 months. It's affected his business that he put $500,000 in all of his savings into, okay? He had a home. His marriage was greatly affected by y'all starting these businesses. And now you've been off on your rock star dream. You've been living your rock star dream long before you ever went on tour. And he's like, well, I had to make money. How much was that tour making for Sandoval? How much was that money, that tour making? Anyway, I ain't going to see any one of his concerts anytime soon. Then he says to Schwarz at the end of the conversation, are you going to stick with me? And Schwarz says, I feel like I'm going to do what's best for me. And I think that kind of sets it up for the rest of the season that we're going to see, like, are Schwarz and Sandoval going to stay friends? Like, how's that whole thing going to work and whatever. And that's going to be very interesting going forward. And then it goes into the whole situation with Sheena and the babysitter. And her mom and Brock kind of get in this conversation that was uncomfortable to watch, in all honesty. I love that Sheena is talking about her OCD related to her postpartum depression. I love that she is sharing that so vulnerably online. I think by sharing that story, she's helping a lot of people. Just by sharing that story, and I love that she's being so vulnerable to share that. Then they have the birthday party at Sandoval's, and it's so funny because go back and watch the episode. James walks in, and he's looking for an apology from Sandoval, which he doesn't get. And then Sandoval calls him. He goes, this is narcissistic behavior. I'm like, oh my God. Actually, I love James this season, and I loved James last season. And the reality is, James carried last season. If it wasn't for James, last season wouldn't have been that good. And James is probably the most changed person on Vanderpump Rules ever, okay? And so when he walks in to get this apology from Sandoval at his birthday party, and he doesn't get one, of course, because Sandoval, he doesn't have the ability to give an authentic apology, right? But James walks in and he's like, this party's like a who's who. And then he stops and he goes, as in, who are these people? And they flash to Billy Lee. It was such a diss. It was such a diss. But obviously, Billy Lee, okay, who had such an issue with the fact that she was not invited to the girls' night, has sided with Tom Sandoval over this situation. I thought that was interesting. So anyway, but they didn't even show her. They didn't put her name on there. They didn't put like Billy Lee, former Sir, what was she, the hostess or whatever. They didn't say any of that about her. They just like, you know, showed her standing in the kitchen and stuff like that. So then when they're having the conversation, Tom brings up Kristen from 10 years ago. And what's interesting to me about that is that he's like, you did this to me with Kristen. And James is like, I'm not doing this. I'm not having these conversations with James about what I did 10 years ago with Kristen, right? What's interesting to me about this, and that's when Tom's like, yeah, and this is where he wants the audience to buy into what he's saying. But what you have to remember about that is, in those 10 years, Tom Sandoval has befriended Jax Taylor, okay, who did a lot worse than James did with Kristen, okay, and he's done all this other kind of stuff, and he's defended all these people that have cheated and screwed around and deceived people. Tom Sandoval has been the person excusing all of that, right? So now he cannot throw that stuff back in these people's faces because he's made all these excuses for these people through the years, you know? So it's got to bite him in the ass. And then James goes outside and he's like, pissing on Tom Sandoval's bush. And I love, they show Allie in the car. I just love James's girlfriend, Allie, so much. And she's like, how much do astrologers make? I do want to know that, though. How much do those astrologers make? But anyway, Allie's like, that's Ariana's bush, too. I love her so much. She's so sweet. She's the new Britney, I think. You think she's the new Britney? Anyway, let me know what you thought about Vanderpump. I couldn't even think of the... Watch so much, but I can't remember the title of the show. Let me know what you think of Vanderpump Rules in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.